Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for this discussion. Today, we'll be tackling the topic of extending ITSM beyond IT to support other parts of your organization. With us are two speakers. But before we get to that discussion, I would like to just point out a few features of the platform that are available there for you to use during this session. First of all, underneath the slides, you can see the Q&A box. Please submit your questions at any point. We'll be picking them up as we go along. On the left-hand side, we have collated some complementary materials that you can download at any point during this webinar and explore the topic further. And finally, there will be some polls that will be popping up on your screen, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So please do engage. Let us know what you think. And now, without further ado, let's start with introducing our speakers. Mark, let's start with you.
Yeah, hi all. I'm Mark Temple. I'm Assistant Director for Service Management at the University of Glasgow in Scotland for those further afield. I've worked at the university for 32 years, thereabouts. Not all of them in IT. I've worked outside of there. Believe it or not, I started life as a motor mechanic, but that's another story. So yeah, I've worked my way through IT, desk side support into service desk, and now ESM is my main focus.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Mark. Phil, how about yourself?
Hey, Pat. Hi, Mark. It's great to be here with everyone today. I'm Phil Bowermaster. I'm with the Ivanti Solutions Marketing team. I'm the Director of Solutions Marketing, managing our EXM portfolio. So my team is responsible for Ivanti Neurons for ITSM, Ivanti Neurons for ITAM. We handle spend intelligence and also all of our line of business solutions, which are our ESM solutions, exactly the pieces we'll be talking about today. I come to Ivanti from the acquisition of Sharewell a few years back, where I was working on the no-code platform, and prior to that, worked for a number of years in product marketing and as an independent consultant, dealing a lot with data warehousing and artificial intelligence.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. It's lovely having you both here today. My name is Pat Zimbicka, and I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager here at Ivanti, and I'll be moderating our conversation today, making sure that I'm grilling you properly to get all of these juicy details out of you. So first of all, let's start with setting the scene and really understanding why are we talking about this today. According to some of our recent research, 1 in 3 office workers under 40 admit to quiet quitting. And actually 1 in 3 of the IT and security professionals that took part in the survey report that they've lost at least one team member due to burnout. I mean, with these stats in mind, employee experience for both the users, the end users, and our IT teams is really becoming critical to the organization's success. And ITSM is at the heart of it, right? Part of making that experience better is really automating some of those back-end processes for our users that are working with the systems day to day. And in fact, the research also supports that, with 85 of the respondents rating automation and AI investments that are profitable ventures. So there's definitely no doubt that automating some of these processes and making sure that the employee experience for both the back end and the front end is similar and is unified and simplified is definitely something that is worth considering. But how to make it work across the organization outside of just IT? What challenges can we expect along this way, and how can we mitigate them? And which workflows should we connect in the first place? Well, let's start with understanding maybe some of the use cases. So Phil, what are some of those most typical, most common use cases when expanding ITSM beyond just IT to other enterprise workflows?
Well, it's a really good question. I think there are a number of different places that it can occur where you can say, wait, this is something that is similar to what we're doing with our service desk. Here's a problem, here's an issue or a change that needs to occur, and this is not unlike what we're already doing with the IT help desk. let's address that. But if you wanted to generalize and say, where does it happen the most frequently, or where does it often start? It's often with the HR processes, because HR case management is very similar to incident management in IT oftentimes. And it often starts in facilities. And there's this one confluence of IT and HR and facilities, which is employee onboarding. That is the use case. That's kind of the original ESM use case. I think that maybe a lot of ESM sort of originates from that, because you have this situation where you're bringing someone new into the organization and all points converge, right? Everything has to get done in a very short period of time. So you've got an individual who needs to get signed up on the systems. They need to be signed up into all the HR processes, and they need facilities. They need a place to sit. They need equipment. So all that's happening in the same place. And I think when that was occurring, HR and facilities were kind of looking at IT and saying, well, they've got a really nice way of tracking that and managing that and keeping that whole thing together. We should emulate that. So I think that's kind of the origin of ESM. And oftentimes, if you'll see nothing else implemented, you'll see companies doing HR and facilities. But there's a lot beyond that can be done. And you see organizations expanding out into things like finance, into things like legal. Where we're seeing a lot of interest lately is on the security side. So there's a heightened interest in tracking security and managing security incidents, in putting those in the same database with your overall management of your IT estate. And so it makes a lot of sense to start expanding ITSM that way. I think that core database becomes kind of the driving force behind an expansion of from ITSM to ESM. The more you're able to manage through that configuration management database, the more robust it's going to be for the organization overall. And that's going to create a better experience for those folks who are, getting frustrated and deciding they're just not going to try at work anymore. That's a lot of that's got to do with the fact that you're not having a very pleasant experience with having to work with multiple interfaces, multiple systems. You're not able to get things done. So you start putting everything into the same database, you start creating the same experience, and maybe you can start reversing some of that unpleasantness that people experience.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yes, I mean, it's if we focus on the commonality between these disciplines, these different lines of business, functional areas, whatever you want to call them, at the heart of it, there's the who's got the problem or is making the request, who's dealing with it, where is it in its life cycle, and that's common across all of these disciplines, and that's where we've made the leap with IT security and with physical security, campus security, because it's, again, what's the difference between someone logging an IT incident and someone reporting that there's a hole has appeared in the road, or there's an insecure building or whatever. It needs to be managed through its life cycle. So there's so much there that's common between us. Let's focus on that rather than trying to look at what makes us different. And it's not just using a common tool set. It's common processes as well. As Phil said, can be learned from each other. Some of us have been doing this a lot longer than other areas. So yeah, there's the scope there the world's your oyster.
Right. And Mark, when we were preparing for this conversation last week, a couple of weeks ago, you did mention that some of the processes that you extended your ITSM to support were some of those less sort of common ones, or the less typical suspect ones. You extended them to actually support some of the student services as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because students are also your customers, not just your employees, right?
Yeah, well, and we have, if we look at students as our customers, but we also have our colleagues who are also our customers, and quite a differing demographic and differing needs. But yes, expanding again, someone requesting their transcript. So this is a list of all their academic achievements. Make that easy through the same portal as somebody requesting, a new printer or whatever. It's one place to go, and again, common processes, but helps the end user, because they don't need to think where they need to go to find help or to request something. So yeah, I mean, every day is a school day, as they say. There's some new area of interest that comes onto a radar. Someone, and again, people sharing good practice, seeing that, hey, this works for the people in the office down the corridor, so why can't it work for us as well? And we're doing different jobs, but again, there's commonality there, so focus on that.
It's interesting, Mark. We talked about the onboarding of an employee at a company, but you think about onboarding of a student in the university. You've got all of the same complications that we were talking about there, getting them in the system, getting their facilities, but you've got so many other things going on there too, in terms of getting registration for classes and housing and meals and just all these things that are going on. It's like a 24/7 experience that they're having that the university has a hand in. Did the onboarding process, did that have anything to do with kind of your original move from ITSM towards ESM?
I should say up front, we have a student record system that deals with a lot of that, but there are touch points, in the student experience, in the onboarding experience, where support is required. So absolutely, it's how do we make it easy if someone does need help to get it at the point that they need it. How can we embed that? How can we surface knowledge? And how do we make it easy to fill a form in if you need to get support? So yeah, I mean, it's a if anything, I think probably the onboarding of an employee is easier than onboarding of a student. As you say, there are a lot more moving parts to deal with there. But it's just how can we help support that as another line of business.
Great. And guys, you both talked about the onboarding process as one of those typical use cases. And there's a question from Alejandro in the audience who's asking which of these areas would be, or which of the areas would be the easiest to start with, which could be that test drive, so to say, and why. Would you say that onboarding or HR processes would be a good way to go?
Well, I think that's kind of the logical one that organizations look at. But as far as whether that's the right one to start with, I think the right one for an organization to start with is probably where they're having some pain. You want to look at what's something that's happening that requires that would benefit from being tracked in a common database, that would benefit the user from having a common experience with submitting a ticket or with making a request. And that's a whatever that is, that's a good one to start with. I think HR and facilities often come to the front, but it can be something else entirely. It can be something related to. I'm trying to think of an example, and the first thing that came to mind was I remembered an organization that was having a lot of trouble with parking spaces. But come to think of it, that's a facilities use case. So that one isn't a very good example. But it can be just about anything inside an organization. I know, Mark, when we were talking earlier, it seems like it has expanded to a lot of different areas within University of Glasgow.
Oh yeah, and as you say there, look for the volunteers. Look for people who are experiencing pain, and that's your customers too. What processes are difficult? Where are there gaps? Where do where does something fall down when it leaves one team and goes to another team? And that's, say if you can make, if you've got an audience there who are know that they've got a problem, they're going to be easier ones to convince this is the way to go. So yeah, definitely looking for volunteers rather than conscripts. I think I would put it that way. I mean, that's what we've done in a lot of areas. It's been very much going out and speaking to teams, and then easily and quite rapidly building a proof of concept for them. So this is how it could look, or you end up, you build up almost a library of use cases that are more often than not too dissimilar to the problems they're having, or the process that they're trying to make this work for. So it's a sort of, once you get the momentum going, it's easier, because you've got more use cases to show, to demonstrate value, to show even the skeptics how this works. And if it works for the people who are doing a very similar job to you, then why aren't you doing it?
One of the trends I've seen in ESM is this kind of bifurcation of solutions that a lot of it has to do with taking service management and moving that out into other areas. And that's mostly what we've been talking about up to this point. But then there are some applications of ESM that I think actually are starting to become a little bit more prominent, and we're hearing more about, where it's more the other way. It's more expanding the use of that ITSM environment to manage non-service management workflows, but that are critically connected to them. For example, with Ivanti Neurons for ITSM Enterprise, we've got a module for GRC, so that's governance, risk, and compliance, and basically that is a supplement to, or kind of exists in the same world as, if you're managing security incidents, if you're managing security operations with your service management environment. Now you've got the policy end of it as well, right? That's being tracked inside inside the solution, along with the more kind of hands-on track the incident. Or we've got PPM, where you got your project and portfolio management, and that's being tracked. Do you see those kinds of applications? Are you moving into those kinds of areas at University of Glasgow? Project management, management of policy, those kinds of things?
Yeah, well, to be fair, we've built our own using the platform. So the likes of data protection, freedom of information, even complaints handling. We've built them in as just as standalone objects within the platform, but where appropriate, they can interact with other areas. So definitely, it's it's really, it's down to almost your imagination. Which areas can you bring in? Because again, I'll go back to a lot of this stuff is the same, or very similar. So if it works in one line of business, it can work in another.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of goes to why we have to. I think we really have to start thinking in terms of enterprise service management, because this goes well beyond the idea of just the traditional IT help desk.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's again, whether it's a fit for your own organization, is whether you're then able to consolidate. Can you bring areas together, where appropriate, again, whether it's an organizational fit. But there's a lot of sharing, there's a lot of we use our knowledge base across different areas, but they agree to learn a baseline of each other's frequently asked questions. So there's less, well, sorry, I don't deal with that, go and ask someone else. It's, well, I've got the knowledge base in front of me, I can answer that question. So why not? We want there are specialities to be, that we let people do their jobs, but for a lot of you know, the frequently asked stuff, anyone can answer it, and you're bringing together, how would I put it, institutional wisdom, if I put it that way, to under one roof.
Yeah, I think that becomes particularly effective if you're using your CMDB, your IT service management database, if that's also your asset management database, right? If you got the kind of the ITAM running in parallel with the ITSM, then things like security, things like GRC, and even things like managing your product portfolio, your project portfolio, that it really starts to feel like you've got a lot going on under one roof at that point, right? It's almost the complete story happening.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if you don't have to jump between systems to get information, it's a bonus, straight off, and tighter integration there. Obviously, it helps the management of the estate. So yeah, very much so. If it can all be, but again, in some areas, organisations will have another product, and then you're looking at, well, let's integrate, and that's the beauty of ESM, that you, and the reality of ESM as well. I would say, when the broader you go, the likelihood is that there will be other solutions in the mix, and it's how do you tie them together?
Right. So as I'm hearing you guys speak, I'm hearing a pattern of a challenge. One of the challenge areas in here being having that one single source of asset information in place. That could be quite a bit of a struggle as we're getting to expanding ITSM beyond IT. But to be honest, that doesn't necessarily surprise, I don't think, any of us. I mean, one of the stats found in the recent EMA research was that 32 actually of the respondents view the needs of different organizational groups so different that they do require separate systems for asset tracking. So that does not surprise too much. But what are the other challenges that you think, or you, Mark, have come across whilst being on your journey to ESM, and what were the roadblocks that you were kind of trying to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's probably the cultural side of things that has been the biggest challenge, and don't underestimate it. Especially if there have been long-held ways of doing certain things, and there is quite possible there isn't one agreed on way of doing something. So you need to get to the heart of the process, and, improve the process, make the process as good as you can, and then at the same time, people are people. They don't always like change, strangely enough. So you need to be mindful of that. But going back to what we said at the start, I suppose it's the what's in it for me, from a customer point of view and from a support provider point of view. How can we fix the pain points that you've got? So there has to be something in it for you. You're not going to succeed if someone had a bit of paper that they pushed around the office, and then you suddenly give them 50 clicks to do the same task. So it has to be an improvement, to get the buy-in.
Right. And Mark, you mentioned before getting some of those internal ambassadors, right? People or departments that were really cheering you on and really advocating for the great work that the ESM was enabling them to do, and the great benefits that they've been seeing from it as well, and kind of spreading the news so that your internal PR was definitely out there, and more hands started popping up in the air saying, hey, we want that too. Phil, are we seeing a similar trend across some of the customers you've been speaking with? Is getting that stakeholder buy-in really a challenge? And question to you both, from Andrea in the audience, actually, what's your tip for aligning the stakeholders and getting their buy-in?
Well, I think you've got to Mark's point, there's a real what's in it for me question that gets asked. You need to show the value within that group, right, or to that individual, to their part of the business, to their part of the organization. The the roadblocks that you might run into are going to. I think the idea that it's cultural is a big piece of it. If a company is if folks are flexible, if they are eagerly looking for ways to create a better experience, then you're going to have a much easier time getting these things through. But there's a real question about integration that will come up sometime. But we've got this other system over here. How are those two things going to work together? So you need to be working with a platform that's going to support integrations to other solutions. And there's going to be inertia. There's going to be established practices around this awesome spreadsheet-based system they have for tracking this piece of the business, or whatever it is. A shadow IT solution that they've come up with. But I think if you can make the case, if you can show that this is improving in the case of a place like Glasgow, the student experience, it's improving the employee experience, it's improving your experience, right? You're going to have a better experience. You're going to get more value for this if you make this shift. That's kind of the key to getting those stakeholders on board. Get somebody who's the light bulb appears over their head when you start talking about that value, and they can start to become that advocate.
And you have to accept that the time might not be right for some groups, in that you need to, okay, we'll park you there, we'll come back. We haven't forgotten about you, but it's maybe not the right time. Let's move on with others who are more eager to get on the bus, and then we'll come back and pick you up later on. And sometimes it does take, in some areas, it takes them a while to believe that this will work for them. And quite often they will. Or sometimes they'll come back and tell you it was their idea in the first place, but that's humans for you.
Both of you guys have talked quite a bit about proving the importance of proving the value that it delivers to the users, right? And what I'm really curious about is, how would you go about proving that benefit? Mark, how have you, for example, or what proofs have you pointed to, or what measurements have you used to really highlight those benefits that ESM has delivered to the users that you extended it to?
Yeah, I mean, there are some use cases where it's easier, in that it was something quite paper-based, manual. You can measure a transaction. It took someone 10, 15 minutes to process this. It's now taken half that time. So straight away you've got and then we know that we've done 20,000 of these this year. So you've got a calculation there. There are other things that are less tangible. It's more in the almost the goodwill and the user experience that you don't always get the sort of hard data on. But that everyone's in agreement. This process is better. It's just that in some cases you don't have as much of a handle of a number to put on it. But I'd say, looking at what you can improve, what you can automate, certainly in the IT space, is we've done quite a lot there in terms of software distribution, stuff that people had to physically walk from one area to another. Even getting your going back to onboarding, you had to go to a certain building to get your photograph taken. Well, why can't you just upload a photograph? You've logged in, we know who you are, that kind of thing. So it saves people walking from one end of Glasgow to the other. There are all these things that you can put. You can put a number on them. In some cases, you can definitely put a monetary value on them. But a lot of it is the pain side of things, that you know that the process is now better. Everyone's in agreement that it's better. Things don't get missed. The something that drops even from one side of the office to the other. I thought you were dealing with this. No, I thought you were dealing with this sort of idea that there's a service improvement there. The end user knows where they're at, and the people who are providing the support know where the request or the instant, whatever, where it is in its life cycle.
And guys, we've talked a little bit about that one platform approach, right? And I would really like to dig a little bit deeper into what are some of those benefits of having it all in one platform. I mean, we've already expressed simplification of the workflows, right? And undeniable employee experience improvements, but I would also guess cost optimization. I mean, having it all in one platform in mind would mean you get the full visibility of where your IT spend is going. Is it being used correctly? Where can you optimize it? Would that be one of the areas? Am I correct in my thinking? And what else do you think we should point to as those key benefits of one platform as well, Phil?
Yeah, I think so. I think the big upfront benefit is the common experience across the organization. So everybody's kind of doing, you're having the same experience no matter what kind of incident you're trying to resolve or what kind of request you're trying to make. But the real core to this is that shared database. You get all the data together in one place, and it's all the efficiency that you just mentioned, Pat. Plus, it's all the lack of inefficiency of having to go find it someplace else, right? I mean, it's the problems that never occur because it wasn't centralized. That it's hard to get it's hard to estimate the amount of trouble and the amount of cost that's saving you, but it's vast. The more centralized you get that data, and the more reliably you're using that CMDB, I think it really makes the case for itself in terms of in terms of generating that better experience and just creating just an environment where you can have that kind of operational flow that you're looking for.
Right, and Phil, you again mentioned the employee experience, right? I mean, the biggest benefit of that simplification or standardization of that employee experience, especially within the same platform, to me just brings additional benefits of improvement in DEX, which can only be a supportive point in trying to get that stakeholder buy-in, right, with such a big focus on DEX these days that we've discussed in our webinars quite extensively as well. But as we're closing, I would like you both to share a tip or a couple of tips with our audience that you would suggest they go away with. So if I was, coming out of this webinar, I was like, okay, I'm completely sold. I'm going on with the new initiative of ESM. I want to get it done. I know now which of the areas could be my pilot. Where could I start? I know that I should make that pilot my internal ambassador to really try and help me raise awareness and get some excitement about signing up from the other departments to be participating in the ESM endeavors. But what other tips would you give me to really ensure that this is a great success? Phil, I'll start with you.
Well, I think what you want to do is, as I mentioned earlier, you want to identify an area where there is an immediately recognized pain, right? There's a problem. We know that this could be better than it is. And you want to look for you want to look for something that would accommodate itself well to the same kind, the same basic kind of workflow management that is accomplished with ITSM. I think Mark made a really good point about not everybody's going to sign up immediately. So you look for one that there's definitely an issue going on. You look for one where there's going to be a nice crossover with what you're already doing, where it's there's going to be an immediate sense of this is better. You want that win, right? Because what you want to do is you want that to become, once you found that advocate, once you found that person backing the process, you want that to become the showpiece for the rest of the organization. You get a couple of wins in there, and you're going to be able to make that move into a broader ESM solution that much easier. I think that's what Mark would say has made it work so well at University of Glasgow, is that groups within the organization who've seen it working, they want those results too, right? The results speak for themselves. And that if you're creating a better experience for one group, pretty soon everybody's going to want that same improved experience.
Yeah, very much. And and to make it easy for where do we start? Having identified an area that is wants to make the change. Asking the simple questions of what are the top 5, 10, 15, 20 things people ask you about. What the questions they're asking you. Well, there straight away you've got the beginnings of your knowledge base that we can be pushing this back to the end user when they want the answers. Look at the top 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever things that people report to you as this is not working for me. So you've got your incident management. Now that works the same outside of IT as well. And then looking at the top 5, 10, 15, 20 things that people request from you. Can we get these into request offerings, get them into the catalogue? And it's one place, one portal for people to go to. They don't need to know who provides the service. They don't need to know who provides the support, and where these people live, where on a massive website they have their presence. They go to one portal. What is it I want to do, and they get it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much both for sharing your thoughts on this today with our audience. Thank you for the audience for joining, for participating so actively. Any questions that came through that we didn't manage to get to today, we'll follow up on via email. If you haven't yet picked up any of the leftover materials that are there for you, please grab them right now before we close. And don't forget to look out for the pop-up banner at the very end. You can click on it to register for the next month's discussion, which is going to be talking about modern phishing. A little bit of a security topic this time, so definitely don't miss that. Register today to get in there early on, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.